Hello and welcome to episode number 6 of the Build a Block series. This one we are going to actually dive in and start building the QR code portion for the block. So it starts to get interesting now. So last we left, had a prompt for the user to enter a URL, and if they update it and save it, they would view that URL on that page. And the code in index, the edit shows the text control, and then the save is what's displaying to the user. So in this one, we're going to try and implement. I found this library, the QRCode JS library, and it allows you to, it's kind of nice because it hasn't changed in a while, 7 years. It has no dependencies, so that's great. And it allows you to render a QR code pretty straightforward. It needs an element, and then it issues some JavaScript to find that element and replace it with the code. We'll probably implement something like this, and let's see how it goes. So first, let's kind of change the shape of our output to match something a little more like this. So in here, we can change this to be ID equals QR code. And then I'm going to switch the attribute to be a data element. This just allows me to grab it easily from the front end. But since I change this signature, I also have to change how the attributes are defined. So now it is going, the source is going to be an attribute, no longer the text part. The selector, we're going to look for this ID. So we're going to change that to QR code. And then the attribute it's looking for is going to be data URL. So if I save that, it should output this, which we won't really see anything on the front end, but let's build our changes and let's see what it looks like. Go to our edit, reload. The block should break because I've changed the signature of the save. That's quite all right. Let's remove it and add a new one. All right, and then someday I'll be able to type update. And if we look in here, we can see what our signature looks like. ID, and then our data URL is there, which is great. If we exit this, and then if we refresh, it will confirm that we're reading the attributes properly. Since it saved that attribute, the block didn't break on that refresh. So it looks like we're doing all of that correct. So next we need to implement this part on the front end. So to do that, we need to enqueue that JavaScript. I already downloaded the file here. It's called QRCode JS. And in the PHP, we're going to enqueue that file. So previously, all we enqueued was the editor script. So the script that loads when you load the editor. We're going to add a new one. And this is, if you've done JavaScript or done WordPress JavaScript things before, this is the exact same you would do for just any JavaScript file. We're going to enqueue the script, and we are going to, I think it might be scripts. Enqueue script. We'll look that up. And then the function here, maybe they're both the same, enqueue script. We need to give it a handle. So this handle we'll call QR code, and then it's going to be that file. This is just our namespace we're kind of using for this plugin. And then this is the file we're going to load. We're going to load the QRCode JS file, and then we are going to load plugins URL, and that's at QRCode min.js, and then we put this part, and then this part is the dependencies. This has no dependencies, so we can just do an empty array. This part is the version. The file hasn't changed in 7 years, so I actually can just leave these two parts off. And we'll just do it like that. This gets indented here. And then let's indent this here. All right. So that should be our enqueue. So this should load that file when I load the page. So let's look at our test post. I got a parse error. So I think this one is enqueue scripts. Oh no, I got a parse error here. I don't have a closing. And then when I look at the page source, I should see that file enqueued. Here it is, QRCode JS. So that is looking good. To confirm, it was scripts up here, which I thought it was because we might do more than one. But in this, we're just enqueuing a single script. All right, after the QRCode JS library is loaded, we want to create another script. This script is going to handle this trigger part. So it's going to look for this ID and call the QRCode library to do its thing. So for this, we're going to create a new script, and we'll call that, this is the handle for the script, we'll just call it trigger. The file will be QRCode JS, and we will list the dependency as this library because it really does need that to be there for it to run. So it's best to make sure that's loaded. And this next one for the version, all the file version is, or the is a way to break the browser cache. And so what we want to do here is just put a unique number every time the file changes. And so what we can do is just call file modified time and then get the path of where that file is. And every time this file changes, it'll put a unique number here, which will just be some Unix time string of the number. And then this last parameter we'll put as true because we want this script to be in the footer of our page. So we'll know our element's already been drawn out and it can look for that element. All right, so let's create our file, QRCode JS. In there, we'll just do a quick console log to say hello. And that should do it for here. And let's go back here and reload our page. And we should see, man, I cannot type today. Did not like a missing comma. All right. Oops, wrong button. Wrong button, wrong button. There's our hello. And we are loaded. So let's go to this trigger file and do what we need to do. So the trigger file is going to look for this ID and then trigger the code. A nice thing to do with any JavaScript you're going to write on the front end is something called IIFE. Instant and something, something, something JavaScript. What it does, it allows you to scope the code, like kind of do a namespacing of code in your JavaScript, immediately invoked function expression. So IFE, the syntax looks kind of like this. It's a little bit funky, but it's a good best practice to do it. And I'll put links in on why you want to do it that way. And if you do it like that, you are great. So all that does is we'll create a function and then immediately call that function when this loads. But everything inside of this function will be scoped within the function. So if I create an element here, if someone else loads some other JavaScript in some other WordPress plugin and they use that same name element, I won't get a conflict with that. So let's move on. Document get element by ID. And this is going to be our QR code element. And then what we want to do is call our function. So let's take a look what that looks like. Let's just kind of copy that. And we already have our element defined. This is going to be a constant. We actually don't have to set an element there. And then the text is going to be our URL. And then our URL we stored in the data parameter. And so you can get a data parameter by using the property data set, and then you put that name. So this reads data URL like that. So anything under this data dash, a data set will read that attribute. So now we have our URL there, so we can replace this with URL. Let's make our QR code bigger. And that all looks great. And now if this works, we should see our QR code. So let's reload. Hey, that'll do. We got ourselves a QR code. Nice. So that is what we're trying to do. We have a block collecting the URL, view the post, get a QR code. So that about wraps it up. I created a Git repository. So if you take a look at github.com MCAS QRCode block, I'll have all the code up there you can take a look at. But that's it for now. Thanks so much.